Okay, chapter 3, classical civilizations, India. We have our stages that you saw in the book with our timeline. We're going to begin with the framework for Indian history, geography, and the formative period. Start with geography, extremely important in affecting the beginning of this period, especially with the end of the Harpan civilization that we learned about in chapter 1. It collapses, we don't know a lot about it, and then we're moving into our formative period. Geography affects that. The Himalayas, having that in the northern part, one of the questions on the quiz, who do we not trade with? Those to the north, which was one of the questions, was Russia. The Indus and the Ganges River. Indus River right here in the valley area, the Ganges coming across in the north from east to west. And then our monsoon seasons. Those are going to affect our trade going down to Africa into the Middle East. It's also going to affect your agriculture with rainy seasons, what crops you're growing, and also, of course, dealing with flooding as well. So the monsoons are a big impact upon societies. All right, your formative period, this is the Vedic Age and the Epic Age. You have your Aryans, Indo-Europeans, coming on down from Europe, down into the Middle East, settling in the Indus River, northern India area. It's going to be a conglomeration of culture, philosophy, religion, all of those things combined is going to end up starting the Vedic and Epic Age, also influencing Hinduism with all the gods, such as Greek mythology, all the polytheistic gods in the Middle East, from the Sumerians, Assyrians, Babylonians, gods over cities, gods over parts of nature. And so all of this is getting combined into one aspect. Your Vedic Age, 1500 to 1000 BCE, you're going to have the development of Sanskrit for your writing. Comparison to China, where they have Mandarin as their language, Sanskrit will be in the upper classes, but you're still going to have a huge variety of dialects. So at least that writing helps you in the upper class. Veda for knowledge, you'll have your Rig Veda during the Vedic Age, and that's 1028 hymns by the priests of priestly worship to their many gods. You'll have the Epic Age from 1000 to 600 BCE, and you'll have the Mahabharata, which is the greatest epic poems, and you'll have the Ramayana, which were your stories of the battles that would take place between the gods, and also with your groups as well, and the gods would be influencing that. And then your Upanishads, your mystical religion, dealing with the more mystical side, and we'll see later on with the mystics and how that works in Hinduism. All right, your Varnas, which is your caste system. Important note here, all right? In the beginning, your warriors were on top, then your priests. There's going to be a switch during the Epic Age, and that's important to note. The priests are going to go on top, then your warriors and your governors. The biggest thing to note, not so much the flexibility here, because they're more of a rigid caste system that you have after this point, but more in the fact that you're going to have religion as a main viewpoint in India versus in China you have politics and economics. In India you have religion and economics. Politics is kind of a bystander because of the way the caste system is set up and how rigid it is. It's kind of a checks and balances itself. Your third group, your traders, merchants. So again, comparison to China, you have merchants that are higher up in the social order. And then farmers. Your Sudras, which are your laborers, and then the untouchables. Comparison with China to the mean people. Mean people still interacted with the rulers. You had artists and musicians and comedians, people doing plays. You would have this upper class have them come in and perform for them. Whereas the untouchables, there wasn't anything like that as far as interacting with an upper class. They just wouldn't do it because if you touch somebody, you would lose your social order. Religion, Indra, the god of thunder and god of strength, was seen as their overall god. Eventually you're going to develop also into Vishnu and Shiva, and these will be your prominent gods that you end up dealing with. There are about 33 main gods, but then you're looking at several hundred more gods beyond that as well. Buddha will come about at the end of the Epic Age, and so Buddhism will start. There are some contrasts between Buddhism and Hinduism. One of those being the caste system. Hinduism has the caste system. Buddhism does not have the caste system. So a little bit more harmony, equality among nature and among the people themselves. And then, of course, another major difference, Hinduism doesn't have a founder. Buddhism does. So among the major religions we'll be studying and have already started studying, you'll see Judaism with Abraham, Christianity with Christ, Islam with Muhammad, Buddhism with Buddha, and then Hinduism, we don't have a founder. So among our main religions that we'll be studying, you don't see a founder. Even Taoism had Lao Tzu as a leader. We don't see that in Hinduism. You have the Brahmin class of priests, but not one specific leader. All right, post-classical, patterns in classical India. You have Alexander the Great, 327 BCE, reaching past the Indus River Valley area. He will be affecting it with Hellenism, so the Greek culture, philosophies, and architecture will be influencing some of these regions. One of those, Magda Kingdom, 327 to 321 BCE. They're going to see that, all right, and they're going to try and implement some of that. And so they start a pretty strong kingdom, but it's very, very small. It's kind of in this northeast region here. Chandragupta Maurya will start the Mauryan dynasty in 322 BCE, and he'll be an autocratic ruler. So it's an absolute ruler where what he says is the law, what he says is what goes. He's the last say in everything. He doesn't have to go through any kind of parliament or any kind of group of people to get things approved. What he says is what it is. Ashoka will be your greatest ruler during the Mauryan dynasty, 269 to 232 BCE. He will eventually convert to Buddhism. This is important. He expands the Mauryan dynasty pretty far south, almost all of it, just missing that southern tip. And he will expand it a little bit beyond the Indus River Valley as well. And he does that through the military. When he converts to Buddhism, he becomes more peaceful, more relaxed, more forgiving, more understanding. Not that he was a harsh ruler like Qin Shi Huangdi in China with the Qin dynasty, but he did use the military. We'll also see in a slide where he has edicts set up and pillars set up for Buddhism. And the empire will eventually start to collapse in 185 BCE, so 322 to 185 BCE. The Kushans will step in. This will be a foreign group from the north. They're going to come through the Kushan Pass. Kanishka will be their main ruler, and he's going to convert to Buddhism. This is going to hurt Buddhism because it's a foreign ruler, and India was not fond of having foreigners rule over them. So a similarity to China. China wanted to stay isolated. While India wasn't isolated because of all their contacts, they did want other people to stay out. They wanted to rule themselves. The Guptas from 320 CE to 535 CE, you'll have the Huns come in. And so if it's not the Mongols or Huns, it's the collapse of having a bad ruler that will hurt you. So Ashoka for the Moraine, and then he was a great ruler, and then you don't have anybody that follows in his footsteps. You have the Kushans, and then of course you'll end up with the Guptas. Here's the Mauryan Empire and the Gupta Empire. Another one with the Gupta, the extent of the Mauryan showing the Magda kingdom as well. Here is our map with our pillars and rocks and edicts that we have for Buddhism. Over here in the green, you have the extent of the Gupta Empire at its height. And here's all of them combined together. All right, political institutions, regionalism. In the beginning, you had states and individual kingdoms set up. Similar to Shang and Zhao, but they're a lot more independent. That was more feudalism. These were independent regions, eventually taken over by the Moraine, where they'll be paying taxes, helping out with the military. The Gupta will send some people out, but nothing to the extent of Han China with their bureaucracy and the complexity that they have with their ruling government. Kadaleya will be the chief minister to Chandragupta, and he comes up with the Arthasastra, which was the political treaties with these kingdoms and with outside areas as well on the borders. And so there were some government officials, there was some administration, again, just not to the extent you have in China. So your comparison, centralized China really is your caste system is what holds things in order, and that's why they never go as far in politics. Your caste system will develop more and become more complex by 600 BCE, and you're going to have about 300 subcastes. We're not going to need to know every name of those, but the fact that there are subcastes within each area. Religion and culture, Hinduism, originally called Brahmanism. As it started out, you have Artha and Karma. Artha was your political growth and your economic growth. Karma was your worldly pleasures, obviously wanting to make sure you had good karma, which comes from your dharma. Upanishads were your divine force. which will look at the mystics involved there too. Reincarnation, that's the only way to move up the caste system. Your gurus, which are your mystics, they'll really come into play dealing with other outside influences, and especially Islam later on. Your divinities, Shiva and Vishnu, the destroyer and preserver, I mentioned those earlier, becoming your main focal points of your main gods. Buddha will have nirvana, reaching that state of enlightenment. It's different. You can reach it during your lifetime, unlike Hinduism where it's a reincarnation and you finally reincarnate to that point. You'll also have the spread of Buddhism to Southeast Asia and parts of China, where Hinduism predominantly is going to stay in India, which today is still the main religion of India and one of the main religions of the world because of the population of India. Your Kama Sutra, we're going to go with love. Architecture, your stupas. You have, this is an example of what one looks like. These are your shrines to Buddha, your holy temples where people can go and worship. All right, economy and society, patriarchal. You have your arranged marriages at very young ages, even to older men, and the man will be the head of the household. So that will be a common theme you see in both China and India. Textiles for economy will be a major focal point all the way up until when the British even take over, when it becomes industrialized. Ironworking and steel, continuing your metallurgy. And then long-distance trade. This is extremely important. This is a huge difference between China. China had long-distance contacts and some trade, all right, but India is going to be complex. They're going to be trading with Southeast Asia, parts of China, Africa, the Middle East, and the Mediterranean. They'll have merchants that are continuing this process as they are thought of higher in the caste system. Indian influence will be through that long-distance trade, and one of those things will be Buddhism, especially to Southeast Asia and the parts of China. Again, the map, I mentioned this in class. I would make sure you understand what goes in what trade zone, because you can see that on the AP exam. It was a couple of years ago, this map, something similar to this map was on there. Your sea routes going down to Africa, up to the Mediterranean. And then China and India, you have some contrast. Indian centrality versus China's restraint in art. India was more sensual in their art and in their love. They had more freedom, more expression, more color. China, much more rigid. There was boundaries. Whereas you would go outside the box in India, you were kind of confined in China. However, India had more rigid of a social order. It had the caste system. So there are some contrasts that are a little bit opposite, where there's some freedoms in some areas, not so much in other areas. Similarities, large peasant classes. Really your only difference in the peasant class would be that in China you dealt a little bit more with landlords taking over land, whereas some of the peasants in India were able to hold on to some land to continue to farm. But for the most part, both extremely large classes in these massive population areas. And that will conclude Chapter 2.